Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we cut through the noise, stack up the sources, and extract the most critical insights you need to feel fully informed.
Today, we are strapping ourselves into the saddle alongside a lone Wyoming game warden.
And this was supposed to be his very last patrol before heading home to his family.
But as our sources reveal, this was no routine closeout. We're tracking a conflict that pivots dramatically from a mundane wildlife violation straight into this harrowing battle.
A battle involving what, exactly?
Well, it's deep-seated isolationist ideology, hidden criminal networks that are operating at a federal level, and the very high, almost impossibly high price of personal conviction and freedom.
That sounds like a monumental task for one man on horseback. Our focus today is Game Warden Joe Pickett, a man whose integrity, it consistently forces him into the path of trouble.
And his life is about to get monumentally complicated, just when he thought he was trading a hard assignment for an easy homecoming.
So, our mission for this deep dive: unpack the sources and understand the tragic cost paid by everyone. The outlaws, the victims, and of course, the warden himself.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So, to start, Joe Pickett was basically serving a professional sentence.
That's a good way to put it.
For a year, he had been isolated in the Bags district, a district so remote and tough that within the game and fish department, it was known sort of informally as the warden's graveyard.
And that nickname, it really speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It tells you everything.
It's a brutal designation. It points to high burnout, high danger, and, very low reward. Joe was exiled there after some political missteps.
Transgressions under the watch of Governor Spencer Rulon.
Right. Joe had been vocal, he'd been stubborn, and he had paid the price for it.
But the tide had turned. Governor Rulon won a major re-election, and suddenly, Joe wasn't a political liability anymore.
He was finally approved to return to his old, comfortable district in 12 Sleep County, where his wife, Marybeth, and his daughters were waiting for him. He was, for all intents and purposes, done.
He was mentally already home.
He was. He had planned this simple 5-day, 5-night horseback patrol just to close out the summer season. Inventory what he could before the new warden arrived, and he could pack up for good.
He must have been so relieved.
He was excited, maybe even giddy at the prospect of just riding home and seeing his family again.
But professional duty intervened, didn't it? He postponed his departure.
He did. He felt he couldn't leave an open file for the next warden to deal with.
Which is so typical of his character.
It is. The official reason for this last patrol was a single complaint. A butchered elk found high up in the unforgiving Sierra Madre Mountains.
And Joe, driven by that strong internal code of his, felt he couldn't unfairly saddle the incoming warden with an unresolved felony case.
And that final ethical decision investigating a stolen elk, that is the precise moment he rides right into a sprawling, lethal conspiracy.
The moment of relief delayed becomes the moment of profound danger embraced.
So we need to establish the reality Joe is riding into. He's lean, medium height, dressed in his functional uniform. A sweat-stained Stetson Rancher hat, faded Wranglers, and the official red uniform shirt.
The one bearing the GF54 badge. Let's pause on the gear for a moment because this context is really important. That badge, GF54, it isn't just an identification number, is it?
No, not at all. It identifies him specifically as game and fish.
And in the context of anti-government groups, that puts him on a very specific target list. He's often viewed as the government's eyes and ears on the land.
Absolutely. The game warden is the lowest hanging fruit of federal or state authority in the remote wilderness. They are seen as the agents of taxation and regulation.
Enforcing licenses and hunting restrictions on what these outlaws would consider their God-given natural resources.
Exactly. And Joe's toolkit reflects this mandate. Handcuffs, bear spray, and his standard service issue .40 Glock semi-auto pistol. He's equipped for standard law enforcement, for dealing with poachers, maybe some angry hunters.
Not highly trained militants?
No, not at all.
And the mountains themselves, they immediately telegraph that something is wrong. Even before he hits the trail, his horses, Buddy and Blue Roni, they're unusually twitchy.
Yeah, they're picking up on a tension Joe hasn't yet identified. And then he has this really disconcerting conversation at the trailhead with a local named Dave Farkas.
I remember this character. Farkas is short, wiry.
Gives off this immediate, dubious, nervous vibe. And he warns Joe, almost begs him not to go up there.
Farkas mentions that the old-timers, the ranchers and hunters who have run cattle and hunted these mountains for generations, they won't go anymore.
Something just feels wrong, he says. ever since that runner vanished.
And that's the first connection to the missing person case.
It is. Farkas also mentions these small crimes camps being looted, car windows smashed, which suggests a permanent hostile presence up there.
But here's where the dread goes from, just circumstantial to something more primal.
He mentions the Wendigo.
Right. He calls it Indian mumbo-jumbo, referencing evil spirits, flesh-eaters, and then he nervously just laughs it off.
I mean, why introduce an ancient spirit of dread and cannibalism into a modern poaching case?
It sets the stage perfectly. It suggests the perpetrators have stepped outside the boundaries of human law and into something much older and, frankly, much more terrifying. It's a psychological warning.
And the dread turns real when Joe finds the elk remains.
It was a magnificent 7-point bull.
Right,
Oh.
huge, and expertly butchered, the hindquarters and backstraps precisely removed. This wasn't a Slav hunter. This was someone with surgical skill.
And the evidence he finds confirms the sort of traditionalist, defiant nature of the perpetrator. He finds a homemade arrow.
An arrow, crafted from mountain ash, fletched with wild turkey feathers. This is not factory-made carbon fiber or aluminum.
No, that arrow is a declaration. It signals an intense dedication to survivalism and a deliberate rejection of modern technology and society.
For Joe, a man steeped in the history of the West, seeing that arrow makes him think of Native American warriors, not a modern poacher. He tells him he's dealing with someone who lives entirely off the grid.
And who possesses superior outdoor skills.
Superior skills, yeah.
So this trail leads him to an isolated alpine lake the next day. And this environment is immediately discordant, isn't it?
It is. It's not a place known for great fishing. The trout are stunted due to the brutal high-altitude winters.
So why would anyone be there?
Exactly. Why waste time there? And that's where he encounters Caleb Grimmengruber, a lone fisherman who is intensely, immediately non-communicative.
Just ignores the warden completely.
Completely. Joe instantly senses the danger. He has to untie his shotgun from the scabbard, recognizing that in this extreme isolation, he is entirely on his own.
So Joe eventually inspects Caleb's catch and finds the initial violation.
Yep. Caleb has 10 fish, which is 4 over the legal limit of 6, a standard violation. But Caleb's explanation, it elevates it instantly into a dangerous ideological statement.
This is the core nugget of their warped worldview, isn't it?
It is. Caleb explains he keeps the imperfect fish, the one with the nicked tail fin, the smaller ones, and he releases the perfect ones.
And he applies the same logic to the elk.
Exactly. He says they only took it because it was bleeding out and probably limbing. Therefore, it was imperfect. This isn't just poaching?
No, it's a belief system. A belief system where they act as the ultimate arbiters of natural selection, deciding which creatures, and you have to wonder which people, deserve to survive.
That's the chilling part.
The interaction quickly shifts from a resource management violation to a threat of violence. Caleb warns Joe to leave.
He says if he starts messing with him, it may not turn out too good. But Joe, he's still focused on process. He insists on checking Caleb's day pack for the license.
And inside that day pack, he finds the crucial non-weapon evidence.
A knife, a battered journal with the name Camish, a half-Bible.
Specifically the Old Testament only. The New Testament is torn away.
And a key detail that confirms the missing runner link. An empty pink elastic iPod holder. The kind designed to be worn on an arm.
That pink iPod holder is the ghost of the vanished runner that Joe carries with him. But this moment of discovery is also the moment of Joe's greatest operational failure.
He was distracted by the strange evidence, wasn't he?
He was. And he realizes later that his satellite phone, his only link to Marybeth, his only lifeline, was stolen when he followed Caleb to the supposed cache site.
He is now completely cut off, isolated, and walking right into an ambush.
And that's when Caleb's brother, Camish, shows up. They reveal their preferred moniker, the Grimm brothers.
And Camish is the spokesman, the articulate one. He immediately launches into this high-minded, anti-government rationale for their actions.
He doesn't see Joe as a protector of wildlife. He sees him as an employee of a vast illegal operation.
He calls Joe a tax collector for the government. This isn't just resentment. It's a crystallized ideological stance, likely rooted in the extreme end of the property rights movement.
They challenge the entire premise of state authority. Why should American citizens need a license, which they define as a tax, to catch native fish in wild country?
Camish calls the whole thing a racket, positioning the government, not themselves, as the real criminals exploiting the land of the people.
This is a textbook example of anti-federalist thought taken to a violent extreme. They see all government regulation, from fishing licenses to property taxes, as inherently tyrannical.
And the fact that they are from the UP, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, is a vital piece of context that we need to briefly define.
Right. Why does the UP matter so much here?
Well, the Upper Peninsula is rugged, it's extremely remote, and it's known for a history of fiercely independent residents, many of whom have these deep, multi-generational attachments to their land and traditional ways of life.
So that context explains their skill set.
Right, their dedication to traditional survival, like the homemade arrow, and their deep-seated suspicion of external authority figures, especially those from the government who might threaten their land or their resources.
And their contempt for that authority is immediately visible when Joe writes the citations for wanton destruction of game and fishing without a license.
They just burst out laughing and feed the tickets right into the fire.
They treat his authority as a complete joke. They're making a visual spectacle of their defiance.
And Joe realizes with this chilling certainty that they never intended for him to leave that mountain alive.
And that defiance rapidly turns to brutality. Joe is ambushed with those homemade arrows. The violence is immediate and devastating.
The outcome is horrific. His pack horse, Blue Roni, is killed instantly when an arrow severs an artery, just bleeds out massively.
And Buddy, his other horse, sustains a severe neck wound. This isn't just about escaping law enforcement.
No, it's about destroying the mechanism of law enforcement. But the truly defining, disturbing moment is the aftermath.
The brutal efficiency.
That's the term. They professionally skin and butcher Blue Roni, Joe's horse. And then Caleb, who Joe notes is inhumanly strong, reaches into the gut pile, pulls out the huge, dark, butterfly-shaped liver.
And eats it raw,
Right.
with black blood streaming down his mouth.
That image, Caleb eating raw liver, it is a profound moment of shock. It instantly strips away any veneer of civilized debate.
So what is the significance of that act? Is it pure survival, or is it something more ritualistic, a
Yeah.
ritual of defiance?
It's both, but it's primarily psychological warfare. While raw liver can be an immediate source of nutrients, the performance, doing it deliberately in front of a law enforcement officer who just witnessed the slaughter of his own transport, is a total rejection of the norms of society.
It harkens back to the primal nature suggested by the Wendigo rumors.
Exactly. They're signaling, we live by nature's law, and you are prey. They are dehumanizing themselves in Joe's eyes, making the lethal encounter that follows entirely inevitable.
That is the moment Joe realizes he is dealing with something far beyond poaching.
Joe barely escapes. He is badly wounded, arrow wounds in his right thigh, bruises and pellet wounds from his own shotgun blast.
The one the brothers managed to commandeer.
Right. Crawling through the dark, he eventually collapses at an isolated, crudely constructed, illegal cabin.
And he's found by a woman named Terry Wade. She acts as an immediate savior.
She does. She bandages his wounds neatly and provides care. She represents this flicker of civilization in the overwhelming hostility, but she is also living a life of extreme, voluntary isolation.
No phone, no radio.
And she is clearly living under someone else's control, or at least on their terms. She tells Joe that the brothers don't ask for much and respect my need for privacy.
That implies a highly fragile, fearful arrangement.
Very fragile. She is terrified of outsiders and violence, suggesting she is either a highly compliant victim or an anxious accomplice.
And we see that fragility shatter when Camish and Caleb track Joe down. Camish is outside the door, taunting Joe, calling him the government man.
And he mentions that Joe had managed to wound Caleb in the earlier shootout, clipped his chin, so they're wounded, angry, and seeking vengeance.
And once again, they resort to calculated humiliation before they resort to violence.
Caleb climbs onto the roof and proceeds to urinate down the chimney pipe into the wood stove.
That is just vicious. That creates immediate noxious steam, filling the cabin with a horrifying, debilitating stench. It demonstrates their capacity for cruelty that goes way beyond mere necessity.
During the subsequent confrontation, Terry Wade screams about not wanting violence. She even attempts to physically stop Joe from fighting.
But Joe, during the struggle, he catches her involuntary glance toward the trunk where she hid his Glock, the gun he had recovered.
And that confirms it for Joe. She was protecting the brothers' safety, or her specific arrangement with them, over Joe's life. Her neutrality is a dangerous illusion.
Joe ultimately escapes the burning cabin, which the brothers set alight to eliminate their trail and their captive. But as he watches from the tree line, he sees the truly disturbing picture.
Terry Wade is standing with the brothers, unhurt, looking upset, but willingly by their side. She was never just a terrified victim. She was integrated into their system.
And this is the moment Joe connects the ideological puzzle piece to the missing person case.
He spots a fourth face, standing near the Clines and Terry Wade. And he's jarred by the resemblance to Diane Shober, the missing runner whose flyers he had seen plastered everywhere for 2 years.
He tries to rationalize it.
He does. He thinks it's a fever dream brought on by injury, but the image is indelible. He has seen the missing girl.
So, Joe wakes up in a Billings hospital. He's battered, bruised, and dealing with immense personal stress. His alcoholic, dying father, George Pickett, is nearby.
But his immediate professional crisis comes in the form of Sheriff McClanahan, who arrives basically to mock Joe's account.
McClanahan, an old associate and a total political animal, completely dismisses the entire harrowing story.
He lists what the official search team didn't find. He says, no brothers, no burned down cabin, no crazy woman, no long-lost girl runner, no damned wolves.
This is a classic political cover-up move, isn't it? McClanahan is basically telling Joe, we found zero evidence to corroborate your fever dream, so you must be lying or delusional.
And Joe is immediately put on administrative leave. But the fact that nothing was found, not a trace of a massive cabin fire, not the bodies of 2 horses, that is itself suspicious.
It suggests a high level of coordination, a cleanup.
The official disbelief is immediately followed by covert validation. A man identifying himself as Bobby McHugh from the DCI appears.
Let's clarify this first. DCI stands for the Division of Criminal Investigation, a state-level law enforcement agency in Wyoming.
So if this is a state investigator, why is he acting like a shadow operative, wearing ill-fitting clothes and cloudy glasses? McHugh is intense and hyper-focused.
And his focus is the key.
It is. McHugh drills Joe intensely on 2 specific details: the color of the pink iPod holder and Joe's potential sighting of Diane Shober.
This confirms that the highest levels of the state, or some entity impersonating them, already know about the runner, the Clines, and the iPod holder. They are hunting for specific knowledge.
And the red flags just multiply when Joe tries to follow up. McHugh is intentionally vague about his own identity and never leaves a business card.
Joe later checks the records and confirms it. No employee named Bobby McHugh exists in the DCI database.
This confirms McHugh is a shadow operative. He's likely federal or working for a private party using the cover of state law enforcement.
While Joe is trying to navigate this political deception, he gets a massive personal distraction.
His mother-in-law, Missy, the wealthy, critical media mogul, pays him a visit.
And Missy, true to form, is not there out of genuine concern for Joe's recovery, is she?
Not at all. She criticizes his childish job, saying he's too old for it and should quit. Her real purpose is purely self-serving.
She wants to leverage Joe's connection to Nate Romanowski, the fugitive falconer who often acts outside the law.
She wants to hire Nate to scare off her alcoholic ex-husband, Bud Longbreak, who is now threatening her. This messy civilian subplot throws Joe's hyper-focused lethal wilderness conflict into sharp relief.
It reminds you that he's dealing with immense political and physical danger while also managing the domestic chaos of his family life.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So Joe is convinced that his sighting of Diane Shober was real, and he needs proof to combat the official narrative that he was just delusional.
He meets with Diane's mother, Jenna Shober, who manages to talk to Joe privately, away from her aggressive, wealthy developer husband, Brent Shober.
And Jenna provides critical confirmation about Diane's personality and her political leanings. Diane was a triathlete, extremely strong-willed.
And a devout follower of Ayn Rand. An objectivist.
We have to define this term because objectivism is key to understanding Diane's radical choices. What does it mean in this context?
Well, objectivism is a philosophical system developed by Ayn Rand, and it emphasizes rational individualism and rejects altruism, collectivism, and, most importantly here, government authority.
So an objectivist would view individual rights, including property rights, as absolute.
Absolutely. They would view high taxation, licensing requirements, and bureaucratic regulation as fundamentally immoral because it forces a person to sacrifice their self-interest to the state.
That perfectly explains her fighting with her father, Brent Shober. He made his fortune through development deals, often reliant on federal money and political maneuvering.
The exact kind of government involvement an objectivist would despise.
Jenna confirms this friction. Diane's idealism led to intense conflict with her father, but Jenna provides the physical proof Joe desperately needed.
She shows him a photograph of Diane, training, wearing an iPod in a pink elastic case on her arm.
That small, specific detail, the pink iPod holder, confirms with tremendous odds that Joe was not hallucinating.
The item he found in Caleb's day pack belonged to the missing runner. Joe's story is true.
And then comes the connection that turns Terry Wade from a mysterious helper into a central node in this conspiracy. Joe asks Jenna if she knows Terry Wade.
And Jenna confirms that Wade was their housekeeper who quit shortly after Diane vanished.
This changes everything. The woman who helped Joe and then betrayed him was connected to the Shober family. This means Terry Wade could have been Diane's initial link to the anti-establishment underground.
Or perhaps helped facilitate her disappearance. The disappearance was not random. It was a planned escape.
So Joe tells his wife, Marybeth, everything. And Marybeth proves herself to be the essential researcher. She starts digging into the backgrounds of the Clines and the Shober family.
And she quickly finds the Michigan link that cements the entire improbable conspiracy.
Marybeth discovers that Carol Ma Cline, the mother of Kimish and Caleb and Diane Shober, both appeared on the same local cable news show in Detroit years ago.
And while they weren't interviewed together, Marybeth immediately connects the dots.
Yeah.
They could have easily met backstage or in the green room.
This provides the clear pathway for how a developer's daughter, radicalized by objectivism, and a family of militant survivalists, radicalized by property rights issues, could meet and form a bond.
A bond based on a shared ideology of anti-establishment defiance.
So with the FBI now interested, Joe contacts Special Agent Chuck Kuhn.
Kuhn is reluctant and vague, playing the bureaucratic game, but he confirms that federal interest is intense and a larger ongoing investigation is underway.
An investigation the FBI hadn't even tipped off state DCI or the governor about.
And that lack of transparency highlights the depth of the corruption they are dealing with. Joe now knows he is operating at the center of a federal crisis.
The situation has escalated so far past a poaching case that Governor Rulon is forced to confront the political reality.
He summons Joe and Nate Romanowski, who Joe has now recruited as highly necessary backup, and lays out the full, shocking conspiracy based on fragmented information from a distressed Agent Kuhn.
And this is where we learn the true identity and the source of the Cline's immense rage. They are not just random, violent isolationists.
No, they are Kamish and Caleb Cline, sons of Carol Ma Cline, an activist whose family land in Michigan's Upper Peninsula was violently condemned for a massive secret counterterrorism facility.
And that land condemnation wasn't just eminent domain, it was a corrupt, self-serving deal orchestrated by a high-ranking political figure.
Senator McKinty, who benefited financially through his son's business connections. This explains the brothers' absolute, profound hatred for the system. Their rage is legitimate, even if their actions are criminal.
Joe suddenly realizes why they were so professionally skilled. They weren't just hunters.
Their family ran a meat processing company. That explains their brutal efficiency in butchering the elk and horrifically Blue Roni.
And this explains the Grimmengruber pseudonym Joe encountered. After losing their land, their mother, and their father, they were placed in a federal witness protection program.
Fleeing toward Nevada, they overpowered their federal escort near Wyoming and vanished into the Sierra Madre Mountains. The name Grimmengruber was a temporary, failed cover identity provided by the U.S. government itself.
And now we loop back to Diane Shober and her father. Brent Shober, the wealthy developer, realized his objectivist daughter had run off and joined forces with these federal fugitives, a massive liability.
So Brent Shober hired a Michigan-based team of mercenaries. These operatives, the ones McHugh was implicitly coordinating, had a dual mission.
Retrieve the valuable daughter, Diane, and, critically, eliminate the fugitive Clines, who Shober undoubtedly saw as disposable white trash who might expose his own political dealings.
The conspiracy is terrifyingly clear now. Joe's simple poaching complaint led him directly to the site of a failed federal witness protection program, a U.S. senator's corruption scandal, and a private war waged by a desperate developer.
The urgency is paramount.
It is. Rulon, recognizing the depth of the political risk, that his office, Joe, and the entire state could be implicated in a massive federal scandal, gives Joe his renewed mission.
He says, go up there and rescue that woman and bring those brothers out dead or alive.
And Rulon warns that if Joe fails, the political fallout will be catastrophic. The stakes couldn't be higher.
So Joe and Nate Romanowski ride back up the mountain. And Nate, the pragmatic warrior and highly capable fugitive, he provides the crucial perspective Joe often struggles with.
Especially given Joe's deep-seated respect for law and due process. Nate emphasizes the harsh reality. He says it's not speed kills, it's hesitation kills.
He instructs Joe that these men are beyond arrest. They are lethal militants who have already killed federal agents and mercenaries.
If Joe has a shot, he must take it instantly. For Joe, the line between lawman and executioner is about to vanish.
They immediately find evidence that the Clines are organized, highly capable, and fighting back with defiance.
They find Sheriff Baird, who was likely chasing a different lead, cuffed to a tree. He was shot in the ass with an arrow.
A deliberately humiliating, non-lethal warning shot.
Exactly. It demonstrates that the Clines can kill, but chose to send a message instead. Leave us the hell alone. This act, targeting the local authority rather than the federal, shows their selective contempt.
And they find further confirmation of the threat. A lethal booby trap across the trail.
It's a green lodgepole pine, bowed back by a tripwire, with a sharpened stake set chest high. This was not a primitive scare tactic. It was designed to gut a man riding a horse. The Clines are defending their territory with lethal, strategic intent.
And soon after, they discover the fate of Brent Shober's mercenaries.
Hanging from a cross pole across the trail are the 3 male bodies, 2 in black tactical gear, 1 in camo executed. Nate grimly confirms it. I think we found the boys from Michigan.
The Clines had successfully defended their sanctuary by eliminating professional threats.
And we get a final, vital detail about the fate of Dave Farkas, the dubious local who warned Joe at the beginning.
Right. Joe realizes Farkas had been coerced into guiding the Michigan team.
Farkas confirms he played dead during the ambush and stole Capellan's night vision goggles and body armor before crawling away. Farkas was a desperate man caught between 2 lethal forces.
Joe and Nate eventually corner Kamish and Caleb near the site of the brick cabin. Joe attempts one final negotiation.
He appeals to their shared sense that government overreach is wrong. But Kamish, viewing Joe as the fundamental government man, refuses to surrender or trust the system.
The ideological wall is impenetrable, isn't it?
It is. Kamish states bluntly that they came after Joe because they knew he was stubborn and would follow this goddamn stupid fishing license deal to the gates of hell. He says they'd rather die up there free than take their chances with a corrupt court system that condemned their land and their family.
And this is the moment Nate takes decisive, pragmatic action. Joe's hesitation is irrelevant to Nate.
3 deep-throated booms echo from his massive .454 Casull handgun.
We should probably acknowledge the weapon choice. Why the .454 Casull?
Well, the .454 Casull is not a standard service weapon. It is an incredibly powerful, high-caliber handgun, often used for bear defense, a truly massive round.
So Nate chose it for its raw stopping power.
Exactly, ensuring zero hesitation or possibility of survival. It signifies that this was not an arrest attempt. It was an execution to end the threat immediately and decisively.
The impact is instant. Kamish is dropped, hit in the heart despite his body armor. Caleb's throat and head explode. The threat is eliminated.
And with the Clines neutralized, Joe seeks out the 4th face. He finds Diane Shober in a crude cave high up in the rim rocks, cooking food.
She's unhurt and speaks with that cold, objectivist clarity. She confirms she is home.
She chose this crude, lonely existence as the necessary trade-off for freedom from government control and her overbearing, opportunistic father. She confirmed she had been in communication with the brothers because they shared a common enemy, the regulatory corrupt system.
It's the ultimate irony of objectivism, isn't it? Sacrificing every modern comfort, even a bed and hot water, to gain absolute autonomy.
Diane agrees to come down, but is immediately ushered away by Nate. Nate recognizes she cannot survive the political and media spectacle waiting at the bottom.
He helps her disappear into his own underground network. What kind of underground is Nate running? It sounds like organized crime, but Nate insists it's something different.
Nate assures Joe that the underground isn't underground at all. Real people, good people, are the underground. This is Nate's ideology. A shadow network of people who value competence, loyalty, and autonomy over state sanction.
And Diane, the objectivist, chooses Nate's practical, autonomous network over Joe's corrupt legal system.
It's a profound choice that underscores the failure of the American system presented in the sources.
So Joe rides down the mountain with the tightly bound bodies of Kamish and Caleb Cline strapped to the pack horses.
He's riding straight from pure wilderness justice into absolute chaos, a massive convergence of local law enforcement, DCI agents, state troopers,
and dozens of satellite trucks from cable television news outlets.
The silence of the Sierra Madre is instantly replaced by a media spectacle. Joe is now the star of a political drama, and he encounters a sharp female TV reporter who eyes him calculatingly, knowing she needs a sensational narrative for her career.
And Joe realizes the profound shift. He knows more about her professional hunger, her ambition, than she will ever know about him, a man who just survived lethal ideological combat and acted as an executioner.
The final image is Joe riding into the chaos, a man fundamentally changed by the ordeal, with the persistent, symbolic lone wolf watching him one last time before he disappears into the crowd.
He kept his promise to his wife, Marybeth, to come home, but he confessed that he didn't feel completely whole.
He'd left a piece of his integrity and his innocence on that mountain.
The sources revealed that Joe Pickett, the simple game warden, was forced to confront corruption that extended from local poachers right up to a U.S. senator.
The political machine McKinty, Brent Shober, the DCI impersonator McHugh, had conspired to eliminate evidence and people.
And the central tension that defines this deep dive is that blurred line between true authority and tyranny. The Clines, driven by a legitimate grievance over government corruption,
A Kinty scheme, yeah.
they evolved into cold-blooded murderers who saw themselves as righteous outlaws.
And Joe, attempting to uphold basic game laws, was forced to cross his own moral line to prevent further tragedy and political exposure.
Diane Shober's choice is the ultimate statement here. She chose the brutality, the crudeness, and the isolation of life in a cave
The physical manifestation of the wilderness.
as the necessary trade-off for pure, unadulterated freedom from a world she viewed as corrupt and overregulated. The cost of their anti-establishment ideology was paid by federal agents, mercenaries, two brothers, and ultimately by Joe's conscience.
It makes you wonder, given the real-world inspiration for this story, how many hidden stories of resistance, political fallout, and people choosing to vanish entirely are unfolding right now, just beyond the reach of the nearest trailhead.
Driven by those exact same beliefs about liberty and government overreach? That is the question this deep dive leaves us with. What price would you pay for absolute, unadulterated freedom?